All right. So without further ado, Emily, you are on.
Alrighty, here we go. Everybody see this back up okay?
Perfect.
Yep, okay, great. Thank you for that excellent introduction and all the, I'm interested in all the resources that will be shared in the chat too. I wanted to share a quick story about Women Back to Work and returnship. I've been in career coaching. I started in higher ed and so I learned about it back then. And the first time I shared this returnship option with a client or student rather at that point, just the relief that washed over her was just so beautiful to see. So Arlene and Nisha, you guys are doing such important work, just being strong allies for women to return to work. And I think that example shows how important it is. So I'm happy to be here today. Okay. Oh, sorry. There we go. Um, so I just a little, Arlene did such a great job introducing me, but I am a returner and career changer. My background is in education, and I sorry, this is bothering me. Do you see this square? Is that can you make can are you not okay? These experiences led me to be a career coach in higher ed and executive outplacement and corporate wellness for the past 6 years. I had a business, Marketable Mama, and I had that for 5 years, worked with over 100 women, and the experience helped me to see that it's returning to work isn't just about your resume or LinkedIn. It's so much more complex than that. There's so much that goes into it. Our lives are a web and they're very connected to lots of different things. So it brought me to wraparound return, where I not only work with women to transition back to work, but even that first year getting back to work and supporting them, being a coach and just helping them through that significant life change. And also, I'm interested in making workplaces more supportive of returners too. And that's what I post about a lot on LinkedIn. So, how are you feeling? I want to start with this question. How are you feeling about returning to work or your upcoming career transition? Some of you may be in your career transition looking in a job search stage. Some of you may have just started a new position, or maybe you just found out today that that you landed a role. So either way, a lot of times we are just stuck in the activity of returning to work, and we don't really check in with how we're feeling. So I want to start off with that question. If you have a sheet of paper or a pen nearby, that would be really helpful throughout the talk. We're going to be going through some exercises. So now is a good time to have that. And I'll just give a minute of, not a minute of silence, but a couple of seconds of silence to think about how you're feeling and maybe write down a couple of words. So as Arlene mentioned, I am a returner um, as well. And so I've asked myself this question. And my reaction is made up in in some of these words, along with the clients that I have supported over the last 5 years and their responses. And so I started asking, what's happening here? What are some of the causes, but also the what else is in this transition that may be fostering some of these feelings? And so that led me to pick up on some trends. And what I noticed were these 5 pain points. The first is family dynamics. So I have a quote here, but if your family dynamic, it might look a little bit different than the one here. Everyone's is going through different experiences, but I hope it adds some color to that big um, idea of family dynamics being a pain point um, in a career transition. Another is identity shift. So I've changed so much since I stepped away from my career. It's hard to imagine myself in that way, like what's going to happen next, and not feeling especially clear on that. So that's another pain point on onboarding anxiety. Some of the clients that I work with haven't been in a traditional workplace in 10, 15, 20 years, and they want to go into that. And the anxiety around like someone plopping down a huge textbook of things to learn in order for them to do their job can be very overwhelming. Stress management and career direction are the last one. So these 5 pain points that I've found are going to act as a framework for us today. So each one's going to have an exercise that we'll move through. And then at the end, I'll point the information that we've learned through that exercise to either your career, your job search, or your career transition. And when I say that, that's that year or so after you've landed the position. So hopefully both of those timeframes will address everyone that's joining us today. The first is family dynamics, and we're going to do a next stage visualization. What does your next step look like? I want to just pause and talk about that visualization is hands down the most powerful exercise that I do with clients. And by that, I mean, it's the one that evokes a lot of response. So they often open their eyes and they're, crying or just tearing up and just seeing, what's next for them. So, and also my mom read my ebook. Visualization was the top thing that she called out and had already started incorporating in her life. And then there's an Oprah quote there, if I haven't given enough validation already. So I'm going to get into a little bit of a yoga teacher mode here. I also have done that in my career. And I'm going to ask you guys to just take a minute to take a deep breath and notice your body in your chair or in your car seat, or if you're walking around. And begin to slow your breath down a little bit. And all this is helping us to kind of drop in so that we can clear our mind a little bit and focus on this visualization. So what we're going to look at is, what does your ideal work day look like? And I'm going to walk you through this visualization. So if you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. If not, that's okay too. Just looking at this question might be helpful for you. We're going to start in the beginning of the day. We're fast forwarding a little bit. So this is the future self in your ideal work day. And what might it look like? What does your morning routine look like? And then moving forward, what does it look like when you get to work? You may be looking at your calendar. Are there lots of meetings happening? Are you doing some head down work? Are you at home? Are you in an office? Is there maybe a blend of both of those? And then we'll think about who you're working with. Are you leading people? And of course, how are you feeling? How are you feeling at work in your visualization, in your ideal work day? And now we'll move forward to lunch. What could that look like for you? And then the afternoon, are you continuing to go to meetings? Is that energizing to you? Or maybe are you doing some more head down work? Just really getting a grasp of what you want in your work day in this next phase. And now we'll come into the end of our day. How are we feeling? Are you feeling rejuvenated? Are you feeling excited about work? Are you feeling purposeful? Okay, and so we'll gently open your eyes if they're closed. And take a minute and we're going to just think about what came up for you. This may be the kind of thing where you'll have to think about it for a little bit or do it again. Or, if nothing particular is popping up, I'm going to share an example here. So no worries if you need a little bit more space and time to get deeper on what your next phase might look like. But what I'm hoping is that something came up for you that showed what's important to you. It could be something with work-life integration. A lot of the women that I work with, a big priority for them is being able to drop their kids off for school or take care of their aging parents. So that could have been something that came up for you in the exercise. It could be something about your actual work. So you were really feeling a lot about how you'd be spending your day to day. It's important to you. A big priority is that you are managing people. You are a strong leader, and you really saw that in your exercise. Another one that I hear a lot about in my coaching is financial security. And that's the example I'm going to take forward. Priority, that is a big priority. So we're going to take that example. You'll move through the same structure no matter what your priority was. And we're going to look at how to break this open. And this is what kind of the foundation of self-coaching is thinking about a goal, breaking it apart, and finding supportive structures so that you can achieve that goal. So how can your family support you into financial security in your next position? So your family, you can look to family work to devise a budget together, looking at your budget. What do you need? What are you spending money on? What do you want to spend money on? For me, a lot of times when I do visualizations, this is going to maybe come off the wrong way, but I think about what I look like, what I'm going to be wearing. And so in that case, I'm going to pour a little bit more into my budget of clothing, also this is a whole soapbox of mine, but childcare costs, what's going to happen there? We need to have a clear budget and what we need so that we can move on to the next stage, the company. What do we need from the company? We need to know the salary range, the benefits package. We need to know about financial growth with the company. So that's what you can ask them in interviews. You can do a ton of research on that, like salary.com and Glassdoor. You can also bring that into informational interviews too. And lastly, a big piece is yourself. What do you need internally? And for a lot of women that I work with, that is the confidence and almost like the case study of your salary range and, putting in some research into that, practicing it so that you can have those conversations really fluidly. So this is what I mean by just setting up these structures. So I hope in these lines, you have a piece of paper with you and you can write down a couple of things that you can see yourself, see ways that can support you to achieve this next vision, the visualization that you came up with earlier. So let's think about activating the priorities that came up in your visualization and your job search. You can vet positions that align with the priorities you pull from your visualization. You can build your priorities in your company research and informational interviews. We talked a little bit about how to do that in financial security. And then in activating your visualization highlights in your return transition. So this is maybe your first 3 months, 6 months in your new position. You can bring highlights from your visualization into conversations with your manager or with your returnship teams. So this, you can pull this into that work-life integration priority that I talked about earlier. What does your manager need to know that's important to you in the family, with your family and your priorities there? And then working backwards. So maybe you fast forwarded way ahead when you started to visualize. And that's an awesome thing, because then you have this long range goal and you can think about, what do I need to do to work backwards to achieve that? So what I'm getting at is this visualization exercise is not only helpful now, but all the way through. It's a solid career growth strategy. So what's one thing you can do today to set your ideal visualization in motion? Let's just write down one thing, or just put it in your head of maybe even just knowing your priority now. That's enough. I'm all about micro goals. We're all so busy, too busy oftentimes. So I'm going to end each exercise with this, but keep it simple and small, please. Okay, we're going to move into identity shift. This is expanding your identity. So we all come to this place with lots of different identities. We our professional identities, all the work that we have done so far, personal identities, and they're all true and important. And in order for us to move forward, we're not going to ignore any of that. And I think a lot of times, a lot of the clients that I work with, they feel like they have to hang pieces of themselves up on a shelf in order to, get the job that they want or return to work, etc. And I think it's a little bit different than that. I think it's not a change that we're doing, we're evolving. And we're just moving into the next version of ourselves. So I think that mind shift is really helpful. And here's a visual of that. So we have this core identity that we are in today, and it's almost like we're layering it on top of our current one. So how do we do that? We want to look at our interests and how we want to expand those. And then we want to expand our purpose, and then expansion in our lifestyle. I cannot see this whole quote, but I'm pretty sure, so I may not say it correctly. 70% of employees look to the workplace for their purpose. McKinsey, that was a McKinsey study in 2021. And when I first read that, I was a little bit taken aback. Like, what? Really? Should we be looking to work for our purpose? But then I stopped and thought about that, motherhood is a major purpose of mine. But I also have a huge purpose in life to read and to share the love of reading. And I volunteer in my kids' library, their school library, and that holds that purpose. And it's so important to me. This work is incredibly important to me. It's a huge life purpose. And so I want us to think about, what kind of expansion and purpose, like, is there potential for us to discover in our next position, in our next role? And then interest. So you may have been a project manager in the past. You're still going to come in with that project management experience, but maybe you're interested in a little bit more of the program management too. You dabbled in it with in a past role, or you shadowed somebody on a project, and you felt a pull of interest there. So this layering and questioning of, what do I want to add to my life? and then we can move on to the expansion and lifestyle. So yeah, there's definitely going to be some significant life changes when you return to work. But so what do we want that to look like? What are the possibilities there? And how can we frame that in a positive way? So here's just a little worksheet. You can think about your current identity and interests. I gave some examples earlier. And then plus, what do you want to add? What's something that you're interested in? And we'll talk about how to bring this into your job search next. And then a current purpose. And then what's a purpose that you see yourself adding? Identity, and then your lifestyle, a lifestyle expansion. So we're thinking about, what do we want to layer on? Okay, so in your job search, you can bring these interests and purpose into a company research. So thinking about, what are some things that are important to me? I've had lots of clients that environmental causes are really important, or supporting other moms, or I can think of so many, but I'm not right now. Anyway, so that helps them to tailor the companies that they want to work with, and seek out and build relationships with, and networking. And then we can also have purpose in the work that we do. You know, if you are exploring opportunities in like case management, or things in organizational functions, and how to help work, you know, perform better. These are all things you can ask, like these are things that can be meaningful for you. And then we can also look to things like ERGs. I've had several clients that I've worked with where they're on a professional track and they do enjoy their work, but they have a serious passion for diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging. And so what they did was they, you know, followed their career path, but they also asked specific questions about, what are some ways I can get into DEIB in this company and in this workplace. They also did, you know, another example is volunteer work. So it doesn't have to be like nestled in the job description where you're finding this additional purpose. It can be in other channels within the workplace too. What have you been proud of? What do you want to be proud of next? These are really two good questions to start. And now activating your identity evolution into your return transition. So mentorship, continuing educations programs, these are things that you can explore in a returnship or when you're first starting out with a company. But observing your thoughts, this is such an underrated, I don't know, skill to bring into your career journey. Sitting back, taking note, watching your thoughts, watching almost like your body gravitating toward some things that are interesting to you, I think is something that's not really talked about in career stuff as often as it should be. I mean, oftentimes I'll go through a job description with a client, and there is a visible reaction to some of the things that come up in the job description, either really, really good, or no, that is not feeling good to my mind, or I do not want to do that. So in any place, I think observing your thoughts and your just innate reaction to some of the work can play into the next version of your identity, what you want to do more of, what you don't want to do. Okay, I'm just going to check time real quick. Okay, so what's one thing you can do today to activate evolution in your identity? So this is, again, I'm going to do this after each section, hoping that you can have solid takeaways that you can apply today or this week. I probably should have done that this is 5 things to add to your today's do list. So change that in your mind to week. Exercise 3, we're going to talk about onboarding and advocating your learning style. So we're going to come back to our paper and think about a time that you learned something new and it went really, really well. This can be an experience that happened, a long time ago in a workplace. It can be your son or daughter taught you something recently, or a friend taught you something. And it can be, another traditional setting. But just take a minute and think about and write out maybe some bullet points of what went well, or even visualize a learning experience that went well. Okay. So now I wonder if you can look at this chart. This is called a VARC chart, and connect some dots here from the story that you were just thinking about. You were in the learning experience that went really well. Were you listening to things? Was it were you kind of in a classroom setting where it was like a lecture setting? Or was it a hands-on experience and you had to actually like do it? Were you reading? Were there some charts involved? Of course, most learning experiences are a blend of this, but it is interesting and builds self-awareness when we know what goes well in our minds when we're learning. We all learn things differently. Okay, so thinking about how we learn, how can we bring this into our job search and our onboarding? So first, I'm going to talk about in your job search. I'm going to highlight LinkedIn here. I think LinkedIn is a really, really cool place to talk about your learning, how you learn, and how you activate that learning. So especially as returners, LinkedIn, I'm going to give some context here, is different from your resume because it gives you more of an opportunity to inform your potential employers or teammates. Sometimes they check out your LinkedIn too, before you go in for an interview. A little bit about what it's like to work with you, and check a little bit of that culture fit box. And so adding a couple lines or reflecting on a few stories of this is a time where I learned something new, and this is the positive impact that it made. So say, for example, you were given a new database to learn, or a new software, and you took it, you learned everything there was to know about this new software. And then you were able to cut efficiency. You were able to build efficiency because of your understanding of this software. So building that into your career stories, both in your resume and also in your LinkedIn, can be really, really helpful, and it can just fold into your professional brand in a really strong way. Another point that I wanted to bring into this is I oftentimes will look at job posts for clients, or just to stay on par with what's happening. And I'm seeing a trend of more and more companies talking about how they go about onboarding, what their training is like. And so this self-awareness of yourself, of how you learn, can be a good way to match with companies that do share that in their job description or even on their company website. Also asking about it in the interviews. Onboarding is incredibly important. or managers, how they train with new stuff. And so understanding how you learn well is important to know on the front end and to see if that's going to be a match in your job search or for your next position. So now we're going to go into onboarding. I want to just briefly talk about understanding your VARC style, but also maybe even doing another type of learning assessment and advocating for that. There are a lot of times where you may even, this could be in onboarding or in returnship. There may be some times where things aren't retaining in the way that you want them to, and leveraging your another learning style could be really helpful. So here are a couple of spots, and then just talking to the trainer, the returnship coordinator or something, and having some ideas of these are some ways that I know could be really helpful for me. Like if I sat in on a meeting of how this is integrated in a project, if I shadowed someone side by side, if I was able to see this information in a chart, that would be really helpful. Or if I could use this information and build it in a chart myself, can I have some time to do that? So different things along those lines can be really helpful, not only in job search, but also your career transition. We're always learning. So this information can be reiterated in different times. Oh, did I go back? There you go. Okay, here we go. What's one thing you can do today to leverage your learning style? So that may be a little bit further exploration. It could be one thing that I advocate for in client sessions is write out your career stories and just be able to talk about them. So it may be a couple of times where you learned something new really well, and then it had a positive outcome. So that may be something you can do today, just driving in your car, thinking about. They always come in the shower though, or when you're doing something else. So having Post-it notes with you so that you can write down things, that's probably a better trick, is just grab some Post-it notes to travel around with. Okay, so we're going to get into exercise 4 now, stress management, support structures for negative biases. So I want to call out stress happens. I read a couple of studies preparing for this that 73 to 82%, there were 2 different studies of people found career transitions and job search to be a stressful life happening. And so I just want to, I also was like, who are these 20%, that it's not stressful, that it's like a blissful time in their lives? I don't know. But all this to say that it's okay to feel stressed. And I think that stress gets a bad rap. And we can reshape the mindset on stress to understand that it's information, that our body and our minds are telling us things that are important. So here's a little bit of context here. Our minds protect us with these negative biases. So when change happens, it sparks some stress, and then, but it's really to protect us. So I think about like Neanderthal times when the weather was changing and it was starting to get a little bit colder, and maybe they were thinking like, how are we going to get food when it's colder? How are we going to take care of our families? How are we going to keep warm? Things like that. So we have this like innate, these sparks of these bad things are going to happen, but when change occurs, but we can use that information and use it. So what is your negative bias pointing out for you? So maybe think about one thing that has come up for you as you're going through this career transition and your job search, that has been stressful. So maybe you're thinking, I'm just going to talk about one that I hear about a lot in client work, and that is health and wellness. And that's a big, bucket with lots of different things in it. But a lot of the women that I work with, they have maybe stayed at home they've been at home with their children, and their day-to-day life they've created ways to not only take care of their children, but take care of themselves too. And going back to work might compromise what that looks like. And so, in a lot of different ways. So I'm going to take this example forward, but that's just one that comes up often. There are lots of different stressors that pop up. Okay. So with the one example that I provided, health and wellness, how can we strategize support from our family on this? So simple thing or some things that you might think about are in your looking at your budget, are there ways that we can have a meal plan come in? Or can we reorganize our days so that I can still get a couple, some exercise times in? Do we need to all talk together about how to, what healthy eating looks like in our family, and work on that collaboratively, all together. And then strategize for support on health and wellness. This is interview questions, and also on the front end. Does this company have employee resource services that support health and wellness? Do they have internal coaching that I can be a part of, or therapy? Companies like BetterHelp, et cetera, are partnering with a lot of companies. Is there a gym there? Just understanding that health and wellness is important to you, and what do you need in a company in order to keep that still thriving in your life? A lot of times we get caught up in, I just need a job, and I'm willing to forego lots of things in order to get that job. And so what I want to keep here is understanding these negative biases, that these are often like cries of no, I need to stay, this needs to happen. It's like a internal raising of the hand. And so we need to bring in some support structures to listen to those voices and to make sure that they are that we're taking care of ourselves through this transition. Okay, so and then strategize support for yourself. For me, it's practicing having those conversations and really asking, what do I need? Oftentimes just that is a secondary thing. We're just so focused on everyone else, but we need to ask ourselves what we need and practice asking for that support and being really specific and clear on that. Okay, so some biases, negative biases that might come up in your job search. I can't do this. I'm making no progress. So in that, you might need some more structure, some reasonable daily goals. None of these jobs work for me. You're getting frustrated. You're just stuck in the hamster wheel. Okay, what are my must-haves? What are my must-not-haves? And who do I need to talk to? A lot of times we get caught in our own thoughts about what's happening, and we need to pull away, really center in on ourselves, and then oftentimes have an ally when we're getting stressed. Okay, and then there's also that fear of, what if I take a job that sucks? What do I need to do to prevent this? Do I need to have, a plan, a backup plan, or what would I do in the worst case scenario? That oftentimes can be a stress reliever of just going into that worst case scenario and mapping that out. And then negative bias reframes in your return transition. Now, I'll never learn all this. I don't need to do it all at once. You can question, okay, I'm feeling this. I hear that this is a source of stress for me. How can I build a learning metric for success? So self-coaching is all about building self-awareness and thinking about what you need in steps to support yourself. Another is I'm juggling way too much. I'm feeling overwhelmed. So, what is the support that you need in those situations and how can you ask for it? Okay, and then so what's one thing you can do today to prioritize this stress management? It may just be like a list of, hey, here's some of the negative biases that are like and stressors that are feeling really heavy for me right now. Done. That's enough. Just seeing those, validating like these are sources of that are calling out to me, and I need to look at those and start to strategize some ways to support myself and ask for it too. Okay, we're on our last one, exercise 5. I'm going to go through this quickly so we have time for questions. So 30, 60, 90-day goals. I don't want you to feel too stuck on the times, the 30, 60, 90 because in your job search, because it may be different. You may take a week in one, 2 weeks in another. You know, the timeline is variable. So at the bottom, there's career, there's clarity, and then we're going to layer onto that with job search, docs, and your professional brand. And then we're going to layer on top of that network and interview. So it's going to be, you know, grow into a pyramid. So area focused checklist for clarity and exploration. I'm a huge advocate for daily routine and work wellness. You'll see that at the first for every single one. We really have to take care of ourselves, especially during a job search that can be really stressful. And also you can spend like 2 hours down a rabbit hole and come out of it and feel like what just happened. So having some sort of a routine, which you need exploration, what's working, what's not. Okay, strength inventory, spending some time thinking about what makes you an incredible professional and observing and take note of your interests. A dream job exercise with percentage ratio. I love this exercise because you're walking through a typical day and you're thinking about, okay, what percentage of my day do I want to be administrative? What percentage of my day do I want to be, you know, meeting with people? What percentage of my day do I want sales or project management or whatever? You're really getting clear on what you want your days to look like. So, and that can be reflected in your resume and your LinkedIn and also your interview questions. And then end of month growth reflection, just checking back on your progress. That's super motivating. Here, your documents and professional brand career stories you're proud of. I think this is not harped on enough. You can take, you know, an afternoon and just write out all of your best days. What are you proud of? And pour it in, and then using that information to build out your bullets. So I think career stories are a really solid foundational piece for your job search documents. What do they need to know about you? Research and draft your resume and LinkedIn. I always recommend looking at LinkedIn examples and just feeling like you know what you want to convey and how you want to structure these documents before you start diving in. Networking and interviews, using all the information that you've built up and the clarity and the job search I'm sorry, in this job search document stage, now is coming to your elevator speech and what you are telling or typing people. But the most important thing is, how do you want your network to help you? So asking them very clearly, this is the position that I'm looking for. I saw that you know this person that works at this company. Can you connect us? Being very clear on how people in your network can help. And then always connect and follow up. Follow up is huge. We're all too busy and everybody needs a follow up. Never feel bad about following up with somebody. And then in the career transition, there is, what did I put on the bottom? Nisha, can you tell me what's on the bottom? I cannot see it.
It's task plus responsibilities.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. It's so we're gonna understand the tasks in the bottom, and then we're gonna grow into projects and collaboration. And then from that, we're gonna network and stretch. So this is onboarding your first 30, 60, 90 days. I am kind of strict on the timeline with this. You're gonna come in with it, you're gonna really have some exploration time to figure out your daily routine, what works and what doesn't. Set up one-on-ones with your manager, but the focus is going to be individual tasks. Just take that 30 days to really focus on the structure of your days and your tasks and getting a really solid foundation. The next is you're going to grow into team partnership and collaboration. So how can you work with your team? Are there projects you can collaborate on together? And then 90 days thinking about a stretch task. So leaning into your interests and what's a task that or a project that you can get involved with that's going to reach into that. 42% of people are more likely to achieve goals when they have accountability, public commitment, and they've written them down. Writing down your goals on a monthly basis is huge. It's a very important practice to start right now and continue throughout your career. Okay, so here we're talking about some of the same things. Curiously observe, and that being a marker of your career direction. Inquire about professional growth in interview questions and company research. Learning what you don't want to do is just as important, and mentorship is really important as well in your return transition, but also looking for that as you apply for positions. Okay, this is the last one, right? One last thing that you can do today to strategize your career direction. Oh, okay. I'm gonna take a minute to go all the way to the last couple slides. I don't know how that happened, but the last slide is just about Q&A, so we can pop in there if anyone has a question. I'm okay to stay over for 5 additional minutes. If anybody else is, I do have to pick up my son from a basketball scrimmage, so I can't stay for too long.
We do have one question. There's 2 questions in the chat right now. And then Sharanya, do you want to ask them or would you want me to ask? I do like these questions.
Yes, I can ask hi, Emily. Thanks for the wonderful presentation. We loved it. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
So my question here is, do we need to compromise our work rate because we have the career gap?
Do we need to compromise? Can you say that one more time?
Salary expectations.
Yes.
Salary expectations. I think the key to answering this is doing research. So looking at the position that you're interested in, looking at where you live, because there is some disparity based on where you are, and using that as a jumping off block, rather than even thinking about your career break. In my opinion, you are applying for this position. You're bringing all the experience that you have gained, that career break included, all of the experience during that time, which is marketable experience, and should be reflected in your salary. So I guess saying all this, no, but hopefully that gives you a couple of different resources to dive into as you're coming up with your salary number and your range. There are tons of resources online on like templates of how to have those conversations, salary negotiation conversations. So Googling that and really practicing that, I think is a good move.
Sure, that helps. So my next question is, so can you help us with some tips where we can equip ourselves after landing the job? So how can we equip ourselves with our peer team members? At the same time, we can't reach them often for help, but also we need to just go with the team work procedures and other technical stuff. So is there any tip, to equip ourselves for that?
Are you asking tips to build relationships with your team? Is that what
Um,
you're?
Not relationship, but work-wise, like how can we just get to know about the work process and the technical procedure that they are following, um,
Yeah.
with without bothering them more. At the same time, we can't keep insisting for help with the team members. So is there any tips for making that happen?
Yeah, I love that question. Both of yours, you're hitting on both of the job search and the career transition piece. Thank you. Yes. Well, I think the first conversation needs to be with your manager or onboarding coordinator, and getting really clear on what are the objectives here, and then aligning that with what are my day-to-day responsibilities. So kind of having a big picture of what you can expect, and how you can show up well, and what are your responsibilities, what are their expectations of you, et cetera. Because I think a lot of times we ask so many questions because we're uncertain about our role, our responsibility. So that can just having really solid clarity on your role is, I think, a big piece. Another is strategizing that with your manager and also with your team on the front end and saying, hey, I want to get to know you guys. I know I'll be asking lots of questions. Are there times that are good for you that we can can we make like little training, dates, put it in your calendar on the front end. That way you're avoiding, that feeling of I'm pestering them because I'm having to do all these like last minute questions. Anything that you can do on the front end. And most of the time, we've all been there. They want to help, but planning ahead and having that a little bit more structure to it, I think it could be a good move.
To that, if I
Perfect.
may
Thank
add,
you.
to that point, and that is a great question. Have an agenda when you are having that one-on-one with your manager, or even like if you are assigned a mentor or a buddy or all three. Have an agenda, and like when you're meeting with your manager, these are the things I want to go over in tomorrow's meeting or even today's meeting. And I mean, if you're meeting in person, you can print it out, or if it's if it's on Zoom or whatever, then have it written down. And it's always okay to say, I'm going to be taking some notes. Nobody cares if you take notes. In fact, it kind of shows that you don't want to forget anything. And so if having an agenda is awkward, you can just say, just so I don't forget anything, these are the things I'd like to go over with you today. And boom, 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 boom. Nothing wrong with that. It shows that you just want to make sure everything is being covered. And again, not only with your hiring, the manager you report to, but if you have a mentor and or if you have a buddy, or even like if you're, like Emily was saying, if you're meeting your teammates, you can say, you know what, I have a couple of questions. Can we meet this afternoon? And this is what I want to ask you. So that if they don't have the answers or if they have to think about them, when the two of you are together, then the time is more effective. But that's a great question, right? Because when we're new, we feel like we're asking 1,000 questions. Maybe we are, maybe we're not, but we feel like we are. And so then we don't want to ask any more questions because we don't want to be that pest. But like Emily said, everyone understands. Everyone's new at one point. Everyone has those 1,000 questions. And so it's the only way we learn, right, is by asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
There was a question, and why it keeps on disappearing in the chat, but I'm going to go off memory, Emily. I'd love your answer to this. One person asked that they were terminated, and so what is your guidance on when someone is in an interview and someone says, like, oh, you haven't worked in 5 years, what have you been doing? Or you know, why did you leave the last organization? What are your tips on answering that question?
Yeah, I think that, so I worked in outplacement for, let's see, 3, 4, 5 years. And so I worked with, and what that is when a person is laid off, part of their severance packages, they work with a career coach to land their next opportunity. So I've answered this question many times. And some of them, went on to take a break, but more often than not, they were wanting to transition as quickly as possible. And so they were concerned about answering this question. And I think staying positive, and also if you have been laid off, talking about it more about from a business stance rather than from a personal view. So almost like pretending that you're in a strategic planning meeting and presenting it in that way. If they do start doing a little bit more picking at your response, but I think first off, keeping it positive, what you're looking forward to in your next position, why you're applying there, why you're a great candidate, and just really focusing on what you'll bring to the table, what you learned from the past position, and how that's going to set you up for success in the current role that you're interviewing for. So pulling from it in a positive way, and then connecting that to the what you'll bring to the next position, I think is a solid framework. The one thing to steer away from is any sort of negativity that you have, whether it be, I spoke with a woman once. She was a hiring manager, and she had just interviewed a woman that was returning to work. And she was it was such an unfortunate experience because the woman kept bringing up that she hadn't been at work or in a traditional work setting in a really long time. The hiring manager could feel that she was uncomfortable, self-conscious about it, etc. And she kept bringing it up. And for that hiring manager, she didn't even care about that. She wanted to hear all of the stuff that she was going to bring to the table. She knew that, and she obviously was, because she was spending her time interviewing her, but it was, so I think that example shows us that think about what the hiring manager wants to hear, and they oftentimes don't care as much what you had been doing during your break. They want to know how you're going to impact and make a big difference, in the position. So focusing on that.
Thank you. we do know Emily has a harder stop. Do you want to talk about the wraparound return?
Yeah, please connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Emily Stark at Wraparound Return. I also mentioned an ebook. It's more of an e-workbook, I should say. And I'd love to share it with you on my website. It's $10, but I'm happy to give it to you for free just for spending the last hour with me. If you send me an email, I'd love to pass it over to you. And anything else you need or want to learn about me is on wraparoundreturn.com. There's even a place where you can have a free 30-minute chat with me, just what's going on, potential ways that we can partner together. But oftentimes people just sometimes use it as like, I have a quick question, and it's a quick and easy way to just get on my calendar, and I'm more than happy to chat with you.
I'm happy to stay on for Nisha and I can stay on, or I'll stay on if there are additional questions. But Emily, I really want to thank you. There's so much, a wealth of information.